I must have sounded odd at the supermarket the other day. Just, you're Tony's therapist. Yeah, whether it's appropriate.
How can I help you?
Well, it's about my son. Well, both kids, really. The situation with the shooting. I'm very worried about them.
Sure.
It's a very serious problem. You know, guns in the home. It's a societal concern. And obviously, we learned our lesson too late. I immediately removed all the firearms from the house after the goings-on at Tony's uncle's. Anyway, last night, I was shrieking at my son. And I said something very cruel. And especially since he has been trying so hard.
How are you doing?
You know, I'm frazzled, certainly, but I am more worried about them. They're not kids anymore. When they were young, there were certain things we could tell them about Tony's life. Lies. We'll just call them what they were. But now...
So the issue isn't just guns in the home.
Honestly, I think about my son in front of those cameras, having to vouch for all of this. My daughter and her friends. They have to face all these years of facading.
They do or you do?
The minute I met Tony, I knew who that guy was. On my second date, he brought me and my mother each a dozen roses and my father a $200 power drill.
Not the typical story of young love.
And I don't know if I loved him in spite of it. Or because of it. My parents weren't like that. And I knew, whether consciously or not, I knew that behind that power drill there was probably some guy with a broken arm. Or worse.
And you coped with that how?
I'd go to my priest and I would cry and say how bad I felt about how my husband made his money, but that was bullshit. Because there are far bigger crooks than my husband. Good, but the kids, they don't decide who they're born to.
So now what?
Yeah, that's just it. Now what? It's all out in the open now, the whole thing. And them, they're not in grade school anymore. They become, the longer they stay with us.
Complicit.
God.
Putting aside the moral and legal issues, clarity can't be a bad thing.
Yes. Tony's second night in the coma, I told him I loved him. When was the last time I said that?
Are you afraid you aren't going to feel that way when he wakes up? Anthony tells me things have been better between you.